Today on In the House, we sit down with Matt Garcia and Nicole Marshall of Matt Garcia Design. We talk about their background and their pathway into design. We discuss a recent remodel of theirs that Adrian and I toured, and we learned about some of the challenges associated with that project. We talk at length about some of their work and how early they like to involve the builder in that process. This is our last episode of the year, and I hope that everyone is spending much needed quality time with their families. Thank you to everyone listening and supporting this podcast. We look forward to bringing you new and intriguing conversations in the new year. We hope you like this episode. If you do, share with a friend and give us a 5-star rating. Thanks for listening. Welcome into the house. Today we are speaking with Matt Garcia and Nicole Marshall of Matt Garcia Design. Matt studied at Texas Tech and has practiced architecture in Los Angeles, San Antonio, and here in Austin. Nicole studied at the University of Texas and has been with Matt Garcia Design almost since its inception. The work has been featured in publications such as Trebeza, Lux, and Modern Luxury Interiors. So Matt, Nicole, welcome.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So I always am interested to hear people's stories and their background, where you grew up, what was your family like, and what led you into the path that you're on today, and what led you into architecture and design and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
So which one do you want to go first? I mean, Nicole, ladies first, so.
I can take it away. So I was born and raised in California. Moved to Texas my senior year of high school, which was a transition.
Yeah.
Then decided to go to Austin for school, and that transition was, originally I went through school thinking, I was good at math, good at science, let's do engineering. And then as a senior, just realized that while that was something that I would be good at, it just wasn't something that I loved. And so it was just a conversation that I had with my mom of just spitballing, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to apply for, to go to college for? And so, it was kind of just like a guess, like, let's just do architecture. I'm great at art, I love art, let's see if I can mix the two. And that's very naively thinking, like, math and architecture, that's not really what it is, but so I knew I wanted to stay close to home, so I applied to pretty much all the colleges in Texas, and I liked the architecture school at Austin the best, and that's where I ended up. I actually did not get into the architecture program at UT.
Okay.
It was the only school in Texas that I didn't get into the architecture program. But it just turned into if you don't apply or if you don't go to UT, you're not going to be able to transfer, or very unlikely to be able to transfer from a different school. And if you want to go to architecture school at UT, you need to go here. And so that's what I did, and took Larry Speck's class as a non-architecture student, and really fell in love with it and reapplied and got in. So
yeah, I've heard that name tossed around a lot, and I actually just listened to the episode with Adrian Ramsey where he sat down with Larry Speck, and so that was an interesting discussion. But so what made you jump to engineering first of all? Like what made you think that was the path that you wanted to take?
It was really like English, history. That just was never anything, one, that I was interested, or two, that I was really good at.
Yeah.
And so it was just, math was just something I was always good at. I did like the science side of it, so maybe it would kind of go in that direction. But I think even going like more of a technical, like construction aspect, it just wasn't, in my mind at the time, it wasn't creative enough. It was just the art. It was like trying to mesh the art and the creativity with something a little bit more technical.
So anything, when you were growing up, or maybe going through high school, were you musical, or were you into art in that?
I did learn how to play the piano. That didn't really go anywhere. I took, in high school, I took French. And while I also was not good at that, I went to France between the summer between my junior and my senior year. And so I do think that played a big role in just being able to, that was the first time I'd ever been outside of the country. And then just being in Europe and seeing all the architecture and the history, and that was wildly inspiring. So I definitely think that played a role in that decision, kind of my senior year, and deciding what direction to go in.
What do you think when you were over there?
Yeah.
What kind of gripped you the most? You know, what was about the architecture?
I think. Or
who's your favorite? I guess. Do you have a name?
Yeah, no, especially not in like that part of the world. But I think it was just how old everything was, and just how large everything was. It wasn't like anything I'd ever seen here. I hadn't actually even really traveled. I hadn't traveled to New York City. I hadn't really been anywhere that had a history like it did. Exactly.
Yeah.
So to be in a space where structure just was kind of predominant in the way you like kind of move through a city, it was a totally different environment than I'd ever been in before. So not even while like I'm not necessarily that interested in that type of architecture that you see there, it had a presence like I hadn't kind of experienced before.
Yeah, even from like a build perspective, I mean, it's, you know, when you see these massive buildings and they're all stone, you know, and you just think about the sheer monumental effort that it must have taken to build these buildings. I mean, it truly is inspiring, even from that perspective. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely on my bucket list. I've never been to Europe or anywhere, you know, outside of the United States, across the pond. But that's definitely that's a very interesting story. I've never been over there, but I'd like to make that happen. Well, Matt, so what about you? What's your story?
From San Antonio originally, born and raised there, and then went to Texas Tech for school and was in Lubbock for 6 years and really loved it. And then went to Los Angeles for a little bit and came back to Texas. It was just a little too it was tough being an intern architect in Los Angeles, just the scale and just the, you know, it was a lot. Came back to Austin, worked for Dick Clark for about 6 years, and worked really closely with him and got to work on some really awesome houses, and had 2 great mentors there, Dick and Kevin Gallagher. And started NGD in 2011 and been going since.
What do you think brought that about? You know, like what told you this was a need? Like you had to start your own firm. Was that a goal, you know, since you were young, or was this something you thought like something is lacking here and I need to step up and fill the void?
Yeah. It was kind of funny. It was just kind of a funny time in Austin. It was like, 2008 and 9, you know, were pretty big for, you know, housing, obviously. And, at the time at Dick's office, you know, we lost, a lot of work kind of went away, big work went away. And, like every office in town, we had to scale back pretty significantly in staff. And we were starting to come out of it a little bit. And we were just at a point where the office was very, top heavy. It was, Dick and a lot of the senior associates and me and a couple of people. And it just felt like in that moment, I'd kind of like hit my ceiling there. I'd kind of maxed out. And my project that I was working on was kind of wrapping up soon. And, it was just a slow time. I had some clients that I had worked with in the past reach out and said, hey, we're looking to kind of capitalize on this downtime and build something while costs are a little lower and people a little hungrier. And, would you want to do this project on your own? And I knew them, I trusted them, and I think they, I knew that they kind of knew my situation, that I needed to, it was going to be a big risk for me to do that. So it was just kind of things fell into place, and just with, what was going on in town, it just seemed like the right time to try it. Yeah. And see what was going to happen.
What was your first project on your own, and kind of what was that like, that process?
It was a project for this wonderful couple. It was a house on Stratford. A really difficult lot. It was super steep, and it hadn't been built on for that reason. It was just really steep. we had a great relationship. There were a couple that I'd met while I was at Dick Clark's office, and we just formed a really wonderful relationship and loved working together. Yeah, it was we had a great builder. Mike Battaglia built that first house, and had worked with him a little bit while I was at Dick's. And it was just a wonderful experience, to be honest. Really cool people. Nicole worked on that project a little bit, when she came on. And yeah, that's kind of what got everything started. But yeah, it was a cool house, very simple. They had just become empty nesters, and we were just playing with connecting them to, they have this great, the site's, it's a big site, and it's very, it's just up from Zilker Park, 10 minutes from the city, or from downtown, but it feels like you're kind of in the middle of nowhere, just surrounded in trees, and there's a creek that runs through the back of the property, and it was a really inspiring site. It was super challenging, kind of our first project to be this super steep, like, wow, this is going to be tough. But yeah, and then years later, we did a little addition to that first project, so that was kind of cool to come back and look at it from like, what was kind of missing here, and give them some more space that they needed in a couple areas.
Nice. Well, so how big's the firm today? I mean,
we're 3 people.
Okay.
We've been 4 for the past couple years, but we just had one of our employees go back to graduate school.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we're 3 right now, and yeah, we've always been pretty small. 4 has always been our max.
Yeah.
Yeah, we kind of like keeping it tight, and it's a little bit easier for Nicole and I to manage.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely easier communication.
For sure.
But so what's Nicole? Kind of describe to me like what's your role? How do you work together? What's your day to day?
So I think it's evolved over the course of.
Yeah, I mean it's been what 10, 12 years? 12 years.
11 and change. Yeah.
11. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has evolved.
Yeah, I can imagine. Had to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it started off as, I think I came on as a intern for 6 months.
Okay.
That was like the job title was intern.
I can guarantee you this much time.
Yeah.
Not sure after that.
Kind of just,
Right.
evolved after that. No, yeah, I mean, I think it really has evolved from me just doing, red lines and, working in CAD to now I'm project managing. So Matt kind of has his projects and I have my projects, and Matt's involved in all of it, but I have projects that I'm kind of in control of, and just kind of taking them from the bottom up, really. So we're doing all of it, from schematic to CDs, and working with the clients and getting into the details, and if the client wants, picking out selections and interiors and fixtures, and it's all of it. CA, we're kind of getting our hands dirty in all of it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had just walked. Remind me the name of the one we went to see.
We went and saw our Austin Country Club remodel.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Austin Country Club.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned that y'all did all of the interiors for that one.
Yeah. It was an interesting project because, it wasn't until I really got started on it where I was like, wow, we're not doing anything with the building envelope or the openings or any of that. It's just an interior project. We showed you guys. We punched a couple holes here and there and added some square footage, but from the outside it looks kind of the same. So that was an interesting challenge to see it from that way, and then take on really the first time where we took on the full scope of doing all of the interiors.
Yeah.
So that was a huge learning curve for us, and our interns, Rebecca and Nyla, really had a huge role in setting up new templates and new ways to present this new type of work we were showing the clients.
Yeah.
And of course Nicole worked really closely with them on that, but it was exciting to realize we can do this, and we like to do it. It's fun to have these projects that are super cohesive in terms of how we're thinking about them. So that was a huge learning experience and very valuable for us, and I hope we get to keep doing it.
Yeah, that one was really unique, and definitely. I mentioned this at the time. My first impression walking up was just, oh my gosh, what is this place?
Matt's not showing us his best work today. Thanks.
I was like, man, what did you bring us to? Because if I could paint a picture in your mind, the outside of it, it's a country club, right?
Yeah.
And so there's very strict guidelines, by the HOA
Yeah.
on, what the exterior facade has to look like.
Yeah.
And it's very particular.
Conservative but bland.
That's very apt description. Conservative but bland. And, of course, it matches, the two units, I guess, that neighbor it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my first impression was just like, oh, man, what is this? But no, you walk in the door, and does it transform.
Yeah.
And it is not at all what I was imagining in my head. And so, just gorgeous. I mean, you walk in, massive steel, perforated steel staircase with some wood treads by drop house, and just really, really fine detail work. I mean, a tip of the hat to your builder, Dalville. Yeah, shout out to them. They really pulled that off. Really fantastic job.
No, totally.
So
GC Techs, they were out there. They did a lot of sharp stuff.
Yeah, they did a lot of work on that project.
Yeah, those. I mean, I think everybody you had involved out there seemed like they really pulled it off. They did a phenomenal job.
Totally. We had we had the best subs on that project.
Absolutely.
And guys that are easy to work with, and work with architects. So it's not, they get what we're going for.
Yeah.
They get that everything has to line up. Everything's got to be centered or something.
They can see your vision.
Totally.
Yeah.
They totally understand what we're going for. And, it just felt like a really collaborative process, that whole project. It was a dream project in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what were some of the challenges as far as the interiors that, you had mentioned earlier, was that there was some learning curve involved with that? I mean, so kind of, can you go into depth as far as like what is the challenge with having to strictly focus on interiors and picking all the light fixtures, right? And the
Totally.
Yeah.
It's the amount of time
Yeah.
it takes. It's kind of hard to estimate, like, how long is it going to take to order, one dining room pendant and the entry pendant, and just the amount of correspondence and back and forth, and, everything comes in a million different finishes, and, just the amount of communication back and forth between the vendors, and then, of course, getting it, like, shipped and stored and protected and inspected, and, it stays nice and neat till it shows up on the job site, and it's just a lot of logistics, and it just takes way more time than I could have possibly ever imagined. So that was the, kind of...
So true.
Yeah.
So true. That's what we deal with every day.
Totally. Sourcing things takes way longer than you think. We're kind of...
Do it right.
Exactly. We're kind of used to going on Amazon and it can be here tomorrow, in like 8 hours, and this is the exact opposite of that. It takes a long time, and it's complicated, and, dealing with sales tax and dealing with, it's just an endless kind of list of things. But, we were so lucky to have a really great client that I think kind of knew we were, kind of going into a little bit of uncharted territory for us, and was just really patient and, let us kind of work as we needed to. And, there weren't, we were able to like get ahead of it enough to where, we were able to get everything installed in time and delivered on time and undamaged. So
yeah,
that was a huge feat and weight, off our backs.
Yeah. How early do you involve the builder in the design process? I mean, is that somebody that you try to connect the client with the builder as early on in the process as you can, or what's y'all's strategy?
No, for sure. Nicole and I we've been talking about this for 11 years, when's the right time to do all these things. And, at this point in Austin, trying to get a realistic budget, we got to do it as soon as possible, right? Like, so end of schematic design, we want to get a builder involved, and, where are we at? Where are we tracking? What are some historicals we can look at in terms of cost per square foot to, show our clients, here's what you're getting. So pretty early on, as early as possible, because we'd rather make good decisions like early on and, land, somewhere in the realm of the, budget goal.
Yeah.
Then, get to a point later in the project and go, whoa, this is too much.
Yeah, sure.
So, as early as possible. And, Nicole's project, she's working on 2 in Colorado right now. And on that one, we're really leaning on the builders to help, like, educate us on the best ways to build in a climate that we've never built in before. And we can educate ourselves as much as we can about building that climate, but working with the people that are doing it every day.
Yeah.
So we got, they were involved from the very, very beginning on that project. So it just depends. It depends on kind of, where we're at and who's, who we're working with. And
how early do the clients bring up the budget and the process? Like, does some of them start with that, or does some of them start with their vision and what they want you to? I'm just curious how that evolves.
Yeah.
I think it's 50-50, to be honest. I mean, I think some clients come to us and say, hey, we can't be past this number. Like, this is the max. This is what I have to spend on this project. And some clients want to see what's possible. And we kind of take that approach where we're like, we're not going to limit ourselves. We're going to design something really incredible and show it to you and then see what it costs. And you can make that decision, client, if you want to dial it back or keep going with what, we hope you fell in love with.
So of those two options, what would you prefer? I kind of know what the answer is going to be.
He kind of answered that, because that was my follow-up question was, well, how do you balance the awesomeness of a design versus the reality of what it would cost?
Yeah.
Because the more awesome, it can be astronomically expensive.
No, totally. It's, it's definitely having that, like, in the back of my mind, like, hey, don't go crazy here. Maybe thinking about the structure in a more, kind of simple, more, what am I trying to say? Just not complicated.
Yeah.
Don't put more than a third hanging out.
Exactly. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's we always want to swing for the fences. We always want to inspire our clients, but yeah, there's
there's limitations.
There's some
on every
limitations.
project.
And I think what we try and communicate early on is what we feel like we can, what our projects have been tracking at historically, and take your budget, divide it by this cost per square foot. We need to be in this square footage range. And that's typically going to mean making some sacrifices from the client, giving up that golf simulator room or the theater or whatever it is. But
there's always like a give and take.
Yeah.
On both ends. I mean, from you guys, because I'm sure there's a lot of different avenues you could take a design, but of course you're like, well, okay, but we're limited, square foot wise or budget wise, so. You have to give in those, instances, and then of course the client has to, your budget's not really going to allow you, like you said, to have that golf simulator. So there's always that tension, and which I think is necessary. I think it's a necessary tension that we need to manage. But
it's just communicating. It's just setting that expectation up front.
Yeah.
And just, hey, here's where we're going to be. It's like it's become a way less of a tense thing over the years. It's just trying to communicate to them so early and set that expectation of, there's going to be some push and pull and some give and take, and it's just part of this process.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, this is like, we're going to end up with something awesome.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah, and Nicole, I kind of wanted to go back to you on this job that you have going on in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
That seems really interesting, and that kind of led me to my next thought, which was, we talked about, how early do you get builders involved, but also, like, who is dictating what a wall assembly is going to be for a particular job. And when I mean a wall assembly, it's not just the inside and the outside, right, the finish, but everything in between.
Yeah.
And obviously that's dictated by budget as well.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
But you're building in a climate. I've never built in Colorado. I can only imagine the challenges that are involved with building in a cold climate. It's much, much different than building in Texas, where it's hot and humid all the time, and also different from California.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you go about navigating that, getting with the builder, and figuring out this is our budget? What's building practices, in Colorado? Kind of walk me through that. I mean, how do you determine?
It's just wildly collaborative. So we have the builder, obviously. Then we have shoring engineer. We're building into the side of a mountain. We're not building on a mountain. We're building into the side of a mountain. We're excavating 4 levels, 3+ levels. So there's shoring, there's civil, structural, obviously, mechanical. All these are required for permit, which we're not also used to. We don't need mechanical for permit here in Austin.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's just been a lot of back and forth I think we started with what we know, and we designed that way, assuming, we had some background information on how the shoring was going to kind of work and what was going to be required there. But like right now, we're working with, so everybody but mechanical is from Colorado. We're working with Positive Energy for our MEP. So yeah, it's just been a lot of communication with structural and civil there, just kind of checking on our end with whether or not we accounted for things properly, and just really going back and forth as we're figuring this all out. We're like right now we're so used to using open web trusses, and they want to do TJIs, and so we're just kind of figuring out, okay, well, normally they do radiant and floor heating, and we're going to go ahead and do our typical duct system. So how do we account for floor thicknesses? So it's this back and forth of what do they normally do? We're kind of actually doing things a little differently, and so how are we going to mesh the two? It's communication, really. And then, it'll take us a few months to kind of get all that dialed in, and then we'll submit for permit.
How has the builder been as far as communicating those details as far as, vapor barrier and insulation and what you mean as far as the structure? Because it's completely different. You have to account for snow load up there, and we don't have that problem here.
Yeah. The builder's been open to answering questions that we have, and it's actually not as different as it is here. There's some earthquake stuff, and there's the loads and stuff, but the structural engineer is he's got everything dialed in for that. I think it's come down to, we can kind of do whatever we want. It's just preference on their end from what's available as far as what their subs are used to using, and from a material standpoint. And so the builder has preferences, and he kind of lets us. He's been very good at acknowledging that we are the designers, and we can kind of do whatever we want to do within reason, obviously. But I think that's been nice about the builder. It's not my way or the highway. It's been a nice experience.
We've done a couple visits to Telluride, and have walked projects and kind of seen hey, how are they building here? What are they doing? How are things going together? So that was really valuable. And just from our own just kind of precedent research of how are they doing homes up there. But we have this great team. Positive Energy is a super important part of this team, because they're the ones that are telling us hey, Colorado's getting warmer,
right?
And we're actually going to do a ducted system like we do in Texas. And that was really mind blowing. So there's actually starting to.
They need AC, which never used to be the case.
They need AC now.
Yeah.
So there's some things that are lining up, kind of it's kind of like how we do it. It's exactly like how we do it here, and which is kind of mind blowing. But there's a lot more, just the amount of snow melting, and where is all that water going? So there's, like you said, some high level questions, and we're not at that phase yet where we're getting into, wall assemblies yet. We're still at such a high level. But I mentioned to, keep working with these guys and kind of see where we need to be.
How long has that project been going?
I think we started design maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah. Telluride, the project started in Telluride, and Telluride has a very thorough.
So you go through historic permitting first before you go through the construction permitting.
What is that? Sorry, I don't mean to...
So because we're in Telluride proper, we're not out of the direct city limits. They have control over what the project looks like.
Okay.
Aesthetic. They can make aesthetic.
Which we obviously
Okay.
don't have in
Sure.
Austin. Austin is very much code. Follow the code, and you're good.
Yeah.
There was quite a few hoops to jump through with that.
Interesting.
There's limited people on the board, and it's just a different aesthetic, and so it's hard to do everything there. It's not very modern, and so to try and pull off that in between of how modern can we get with still being appropriate with this, with the aesthetic of the city.
That's what I was trying to create a mental picture of the perspective of the timeline. So how long was design before you even started the permit process?
We designed for about a year, submitted, and then we had about almost another year of revision.
And it sounds like you got 2 more months before you get the permit?
Till we submit.
Till you submit.
So I would say we got approval.
This was just an aesthetic approval. That's
aesthetic
all it was.
approval back in the spring.
We are okay with how this building looks.
Yeah. So
At a glance.
Yes.
Just superficial.
And
We're okay with the overall vibe
Yeah.
of the building.
Yeah.
Right.
Jeez.
There was
Yeah,
some
and the thing
specifics
is
of, like-
we couldn't get any into the meat of it until we got that approval because the whole project could have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no sense in doing wall sections or figuring any of that out because,
Dang.
Yeah. It's been
My
an interesting
gosh.
project.
yeah.
So 14 months from initial submission to final submission for the permit.
Yeah.
We
a
hope
lot
so.
More, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, though, expectations, right? You set
Yeah.
those expectations. Some of
Yeah.
those processes take a lot of time.
Yeah. Our client knew going in that, Telluride is not an easy
Hard,
place to get a permit.
Yeah.
You got to be patient. And I think there's definitely a little bit of a vibe of there's a lot of Texans buying properties in Colorado and Telluride and Aspen and all these wonderful places. So I think there's a little bit of like,
We're being checked a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
our path might be a little tougher.
Yeah.
Oh, darn.
But it's
It's been good.
an awesome house. We're super, we shot for, like, we would definitely went for it. The first thing we showed them, it was a glass box. Basically,
It's funny looking back, and it's like, what were we thinking?
But I'm glad we started there because
Yeah.
we ended up with probably bigger openings than we would have if we started
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah. It was a good compromise.
Well, that's awesome, though. I mean, you gotta shoot. You gotta shoot for the moon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
Why not?
You don't know if you don't ask.
totally.
And yeah, I mean,
Worst they can say is no.
yeah, exactly.
Back to the drawing board.
Which I mean, they were probably
Just
weren't
time.
going to anyway.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
totally.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, so how do y'all how do y'all continue to educate yourselves as far as either design or building science? Like, because obviously building science really affects design.
Yeah.
The two kind of go hand in hand. And with new products that are coming out, new windows and doors that are more energy efficient, or new ERV or AC systems, like, how do you kind of stay up to date with the latest trends, like building science wise, and how does that affect your overall product?
I'd say personally for me, it's just being on the job site as much as possible. I've learned the most from the subs and the general contractors we've worked with on best building practices. We can draw details all day, but at the end of the day, like the guy actually installing the flashing or whatever it is, I want them to do it how they feel the most comfortable. So, being on site, looking at these details, talking to them about transitions and, how we're going to do things is, I feel like how I stay on top of it is just having relationships with these, guys we're working with every day.
Yeah, no, I think,
Same.
yeah. So just our contractors that we've been working with, like Positive Energy always has something,
Yeah. They're always
new
at
that
the
we haven't
forefront.
used before,
Yeah.
Especially with Colorado. And just builders, y'all know what's being installed and what's new, and just being open, I think, to suggestions.
Totally. And so much has come down to timing now.
Yeah.
Like you guys probably have a much better idea of how like easy it is to source vertical grain whatever right now as opposed to some other thing, oak or walnut. Like, we can get oak faster. That's a different thing than building science, but just stuff like that.
No, you're right.
Mechanical systems. And
You bring up a good point, yeah, because definitely as with COVID and the shutdowns and everything that happened, and just throwing a wrench in things.
Yeah.
It's really changed the game as
what's
far as
available right now?
availability.
What can
Yeah.
we use right now?
We've been some jobs. Well, we just experienced it when we walked your project.
Yeah.
We have refrigerators that are, you order it and
We ordered it 18 months ago.
18 months we're
And it
waiting.
didn't show up. Another year ago and it didn't show up.
Right.
One and fourth.
Dealing
Yeah.
with one too.
Yeah, and that's kind of across the board, and constant headaches like that where you just adjust on the fly and have reasonable expectations, and for sure.
The other thing too real quick about
Yeah.
building science is like there's so many things available now. There's so many videos on YouTube. There's Instagram handles I follow of people that are building science experts, and that's all they do. So you can get online so easy, and Matt Reisinger's blog. It's just endless. What's actually the content that's out there now, and I love watching those.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But I will say to that effect that I think 99% of the products that are out there are solid, reliable. It's kind of to what you said a minute ago. It's the trades you work with and how they install them, and that assembly, so to speak,
Totally
is more important than the product
The product
itself.
yeah.
And I will also say I find it interesting that you can buy products, and if you just buy the product, you can do whatever you want with it. But if you buy the product and you want the warranty, there's all kinds of things you got to go through, and inspections and different things. And what that tells you is the way it's installed, the application, the installer is so important to that process.
Totally. I can't remember if it was Dick or Kevin at Dick's office, but I was very young, and someone said something like, anything installed correctly is great. It's the way to do it. You can buy, everything gold plated, install it poorly, and it's worthless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. Just because something is expensive, doesn't necessarily mean that it's nice.
Yeah.
I guess. So you can have a project that's cheap, quote unquote, where maybe it just has a smaller budget. But if it's performed well, if everything is installed as it should, and it's performed with excellence, it's still a great product in the end.
Absolutely.
You can throw as much money as you want at something. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a higher end product.
Yeah, we know there's $10 million houses that just have some lipstick on them and look nice, but aren't built well at all.
Certainly seen fair share of those.
Totally.
So I wanted to transition back to the project that we went and walked.
Yeah.
Go through some of the challenges, if you will, with that one. Not just from the HOA side of things, where we were very limited on the exterior facade, but what were some challenges that you went through on that, and how did you solve them?
I think the big thing was that it's a remodel project. We're working with framing that was bad and walls that were not straight, and there's always that fine line of like, how far are we going to go to? Are we going to just we're going to replace every single wall, or is there, how much can we keep just for cost savings and time?
All right, I got a good question.
Yeah.
It was in a country club. Yeah. So how was parking, and how are the neighbors dealing with all the contractors parking there?
That's good.
We were lucky actually in that none of these condos are anyone's full-time residences. They're all part-time residences.
Dang.
So there's not someone there all the time that was like dealing with the trucks and the trash and the porta potty getting emptied and the smells. And luckily, man, we're kind of around where all those tennis courts were. There's just a long drive there.
You did have a big pocket there.
Yeah, so we actually had like pretty good on-site parking, and our client was really, he's close with the neighbors and kind of knew their schedules of like, oh, they're gone all summer. They're in Colorado, so we can park in their 2 garage bays.
Nice.
So we'd stack 3 cars, there. So yeah, there was definitely some, massaging that was going on there, but the HOA came, or the HOA enforcement came by a couple times, like, you guys can't park here, you can't park here. It got complicated during Dell match play. They're setting up grandstands and all kinds of stuff. That was a nightmare, and we had to like kind of shut down for a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. But it was the building. We were trying to make big moves, open up space, capture unused space, and I got to give Drop House a lot of credit on that, because they surgically like threaded the needle with some big structural members through very tight spaces. Somehow got them up using these like site-made pulleys and all this stuff that they do to get these things in there. So
their work was beautiful.
Yeah, they
really
crushed that project, and it was definitely complicated. I gave them about a 1/16 of an inch of play to get that stair in, but they went to that next level and did it. But it was just the infrastructure. Working with the building had a lot of leaks. There was rot. There was mold. The decks were a mess. It was like late 70s, early 80s, bad construction methods. Mm-hmm. So it was just constantly like fighting that, and that number of like fixing those things kept growing, which was kind of hurting our like number for how much we wanted to kind of go in with some details or design things. But it was just a building. There's things in hindsight that the builders and I have talked about, like, we should have reframed that wall. That stair wall where we wanted that perfect 1/4 inch reveal between the stair edge and the wall's completely wonky. We should have reframed that wall with some, LSL framing, and it would have been so easy.
A lot less labor intensive.
Totally. They coated that wall, they skin coated that wall 1,000,000 times.
I bet.
So
they pulled it off.
Totally.
And a lot of these pictures too, for people that are listening, I was able to get some good pictures, so I'll be able to put up what we're talking about here today. But yeah, no, hats off to everybody. I mean, all the
before
trades
and
involved.
after, right? You're going to put the before and after because that puts it in perspective.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah, and of
we
course,
love those projects. We love those. We love remodels for that thing, just the before and afters.
Yeah, no, I was pretty blown away. Yeah, looking at walking it and then going back and looking at the before pictures. I was like, oh wow, yeah. You really get an idea for the change that took place. And, and of course, Adrian and I, we walked the job, and we weren't just tourists. We were checking under cabinets. We were looking in all the nooks and crannies. Like,
I noticed.
No stone unturned. Yeah. But I think that's just the builder,
Totally.
This. But
I love that you guys were looking for that. I'm like, hey, these guys, like, they're looking for the stuff that, drives me crazy.
Car guys like to pop the hood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. I loved when I was like, I want to show you this mechanical closet because I know you're going to appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably more than a master bathroom.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, that's true. A well-executed mechanical room is definitely...
It's a thing of beauty.
It is a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned one last thing about that job that I thought was interesting. You had mentioned that you had captured or regained some space. Can you talk about that or expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, the lower level, the site's pretty steep. So from the front, you see 2 stories, but there's a whole sub-level, basically call it a walkout basement. Mm-hmm. And the building's set up to where you kind of enter in the center, and there's a garage bay on either side. And those garage bays are steel beams with concrete, with Pandec poured concrete. Uh-huh. That's what's supporting those garages. And there was just nothing beneath the garages. It was just empty, untouched space. One of our clients' neighbors had discovered that and captured some of that space, and it was like, yeah, well,
hell yeah, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't affecting any of our City of Austin numbers because it was under existing footprint, so we weren't adding impervious, and technically, we didn't have FAR to deal with, but it was exempted, from any additional, square footage that the city cared about. So yeah, and it was a game changer. For a real game changer for the properties or for the condo. The downstairs was the kind of weak part of the whole project. The main 2 levels were livable. They were fine. They were a little dated, but they were okay.
Sure.
But the basement was just kind of weird and dark and disconnected, and it really did feel like the basement.
Yeah.
So the goal was to make it feel like just another living level.
Man, yeah, I achieved. Yeah, absolutely. It turned out great.
Yeah.
And I think we toured a little later in the evening, but there was still natural light coming down that stairwell,
exactly.
and bringing that light into that basement.
Yeah.
So yeah, really well done, well executed, beautiful design.
Thanks, man.
Tip of the hat to all you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things when Nicole and I talk about it all the time of, we're trying to get these three boxes checked. A good client, a good budget, and a good builder. And most of the time you get 2 of them, and this was a project where we really did get all 3.
So what's your criteria, I guess, for picking a builder? This is early on in the design process. Like, what are you looking for? What are some notes that I guess builders listening could maybe take?
It feels like this past couple years, like 4 or 5 years, it's been like who's available to build a project, who can actually take on a project sometime.
Yeah.
So I think Nicole and I are always kind of balancing, like, how soon should we reach out to these guys? How soon should we check in and say, hey, we got a project that we might be ready to go in a year? So that's kind of the main thing. And I think for us, it's always been trying to find a good personality fit for our clients. Like, which of these builders that we know is at the end of the day, we're going to be sitting around having a beer together because they're going to have something in common or have we try and get someone that's going to, like, just fill the team out. And I think personality is so much of it. It's such an intimate project, intimate relationship. I think there's got to be, like, at least some kind of common ground or, something to, connect. Who's going to connect best with this client?
Yeah. So if you have a crappy personality, you really need to work on that.
That's the first thing we're trying to limit is the amount of crappy personalities that we're working with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
us too. I mean, all the time. All right, so kind of a dumb question, but I've been asked this before, and I'm not a designer. I'm not an architect, so sometimes I struggle to answer. but what is an architect? And like, what is architecture? What does it mean to each of you? I mean, you both have very unique backgrounds, and architecture is not just a word, it's a verb. You know, it takes on different meaning depending on the context. So, you know, I'm going to open the floor to both of you if you kind of want to expand on what is an architect and what does architecture mean to you. No pressure.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, no, take your time.
To me, architecture it's my built environment, but I think beyond that, it's your built environment that's just thoughtful. I think there's a difference between something that's kind of getting slopped up and something that has been thought through, and really you're thinking about not only how somebody's going to walk through it and experience it, but how like a specific person is going to, like, if you're really talking about, you know, what we do, which is homes, like how is this going to affect this specific individual? I think it's just all about the thoughtfulness that goes into building.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a privilege. I mean, when you think about it, I mean, it's such a privilege to be able to be able to have that ability, to be able to have that resource. You know, there's a lot of places, you know, even in this country that, you know, they can't afford an architect. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's more, you know, the design is more, what am I looking for? It's more needs driven. Like, I don't know if purpose. It's purpose.
It's specific to that user.
Yeah. Whereas like architecture is kind of how you're putting it is, you know, it's kind of like art that you can live in, and so art is supposed to evoke some kind of an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, whereas design is supposed to solve a problem. Yeah. So you're kind of melding the two together. You're not only solving a problem, but you're doing it artfully, and you're bringing about some kind of emotion or feeling. You know, when you walk into the space or when you first drive up and see it, right? So I think you've definitely hit the nail there. And
I think the main thing of like what is an architect is I think collaborator is the first thing I think of. Because you really have to be, you know, just your clients, your builders, there's all these different people that you need to be able to communicate with and talk to. So I think collaborator is how I think of, you know, what is an architect? It's a great collaborator. Yeah. And someone who has a vision and can work with people, work with clients, and, you know, bring that vision to life.
Well said. You're like the maestro. You're kind of leading the orchestra, if you will.
Yeah.
And, I heard it said that a good analogy was like, you know, when you think about a kitchen, you know, the architect is the one who writes the recipe, and the builder is the chef who actually executes it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's kind of an analogy for you know this collaborative effort that's you know that exists between architect and builder and client and trade and everything else. Yeah,
there's so many people involved. I think that's what people don't realize. You know,
you really get down to it. I mean, there's thousands of men and women involved in the process that are behind the scenes. You know, and there's a lot of hands that are involved, and a lot of mouths to feed, you know, and so it's really a widespread industry.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. So enough with all that. I want to get to know you guys a little better. So, you know, what do y'all do for fun? Nicole, you have 2 kiddos, right?
I do. That's why it's a hard question to answer.
Okay. So,
how old are they?
They are just over 3 each, so they're twins.
Wow,
nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The things I do for fun, I haven't really done those in a while.
Okay, yeah.
They are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I love to travel. Traveling's the best. It really is.
Yeah.
Helps clear your head, and the perspective is always fun. And movies. Love to watch movies. That's, I think, one thing I miss the most since having kids is like going to the movies whenever I want.
Yeah.
It'll be good to do that again.
You seen any good ones lately?
I was probably with you. What was the last movie we saw?
Every once in a while, like maybe once a month, every couple months, we'll do an office movie Friday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
For lunch, we'll go to Draft House and see a movie.
I love Draft House.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't know, what did we see last?
Did we see Barbie?
Maybe we saw Barbie last.
Barbie.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of architecturally entertaining.
Yeah, it was.
Sets were really cool.
Yeah.
And then what else? I mean, back in my day, I like really enjoy painting. So I have.
Okay. Yeah.
Nicole's a very good painter.
I have unfinished painting that's been hung on my wall for I don't even want to tell you for how long, but to the point where my girls now tell me that I have to finish it. They're old enough to know that it's not finished, and they tell me to finish it. So I'll get back into that.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the title.
Yeah.
Unfinished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know.
It's gotta get finished. It'll get finished.
I know what you mean. And I have 2 kids of my own, and they're young, 5 and 3. So yeah, I asked the same question to my wife. Like, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
I was just trying to remember what we did for fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, sleep. Sleep is
yeah,
what I do.
exactly.
Yeah. So, well, what about you? What do you like to do?
I love to play and watch basketball. Basketball is probably my number one passion in life. And I love to listen to the Grateful Dead all day, every day.
Nice.
And yeah.
Basketball through high school, or
Yeah, basketball in
kinda-
high school, played in college a little bit. And yeah, I just love it. I think about it all the time. And being from San Antonio, I'm a huge Spurs fan.
Yeah.
And so that's always a big connection for me. But just getting out in Austin, I love everything Austin has to offer. There's always something to do in Austin. Great restaurants. I just like being out amongst the people.
So we're coming up on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That's
That's crazy.
when we're yeah. So what are y'all thankful for this year?
A lot of things. The kids, the girls. Thankful for the girls. That was a total. Did not see the life trajectory involving twins. That was wild. So yeah, it's been good. Yeah, wouldn't have ever seen my life being what it is now, and they've made it great.
Absolutely.
Very thankful for that. Thankful for the job with Matt. It's been a ride.
Yeah.
It's been a really fun ride. I think it's been a learning curve for me, and yeah, I think it's evolved into something really fun. So the job is really fun, so I'm thankful for that. Yeah.
I get it though. I understand your plight, because with kids it kind of consumes your life, especially with little ones, and so your kids just flood your mind all day and every day. And so being thankful for kids and the life changing things that they are. I can understand, like, somebody asks you that question, it's like, I don't know. I'm thankful thankful for my kids, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So the floor is open to you.
No, man, personally, I'm thankful for, my great friends and family, of course. I mean, this is a hard job, and they have to hear me, complain about it. I need some sympathy sometimes, or someone to listen, so I'm thankful for them for, hearing that. And then, professionally, of course, Nicole and my team. And I was thinking the other day, I was telling my cousin that I think what I really love about it is it doesn't feel like a job. I can't believe we get to, like you said, it's a privilege, dude. Like, we get to design people's homes.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. So I'm pretty thankful for that we have all these cool people that trust us to do that.
Mm-hmm. And
then we have these, all these great builders in the city that, want to build these projects for us. I mean, it feels pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm super thankful for that. Just all the people, that make, my life awesome.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always important, I think, to reflect. It's very easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and all the crap that's going on, in your personal life or at work, and it's very easy to kind of grumble and complain and to be ungrateful. I mean, that's super easy.
Totally.
I mean, all day, every day, I'm there.
Yeah, it's a grind. This job is a grind. These projects last so long.
They do.
You're gonna have a moment of oh my gosh, I can't anymore with this.
Every
Burnout.
project does that.
Yeah. These houses are complicated. You know, they're taking 3, 2, 4 years, 3 or 4 years to build.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's moments of, tough times. Good team, good friends, help you kind of see past all that. Have that reality check.
Yeah.
So along the lines of, because you said designing people's houses, and I've thought about this before, is your preference each that, because I've seen this before, somebody goes and they design a box and then they just go stick it on a lot somewhere. It doesn't really matter what the lot is, but I designed my box and I took it somewhere and I put it somewhere. Or, so I guess my question is, would you prefer to design the structure to then not really know where it goes, or have a blank slate at a project site and then design from that? Like, how much does that site really impact?
It's everything.
It's everything.
Right.
Yeah.
You kind of need that first, not the box, and just go find somewhere to put it.
Totally. I think that'd be kind of weird. Like.
But you see it. You see it out there because people will take.
Yeah.
Not necessarily
Oh, yeah.
at your high level, definitely
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you see it out there.
Yeah.
It's like, man, they just looked for a place to put that.
Yeah. I think it just kind of depends. I mean, I was thinking about like our typical city of Austin lot. We got to look at a whole bunch of things to even start design. But like projects that we've done kind of out in the country on big open kind of things, it's still about like, let's find a
It's about
tree
your
to like
views. Yeah, it's about your
mark
views
where
and
this thing's going, and let's
the
find something to
direction
highlight, and yeah.
what's north, south, and what, it's just, I don't even know if I know where to start with the first option.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, you kind of have to like set your parameters and have a direction to go in. Kind of can't build in a vacuum well.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's building
Yeah.
in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That always drives me nuts. I see builders where I live. They'll buy a lot. They'll build spec homes.
Yeah.
They'll buy a lot and they'll just completely clear cut it of everything.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, what did you do? Like,
Totally.
it's like get an understanding for the land first.
Yeah.
Design your house according to the land and remove what you have to. I'm not a tree hugger by any means,
Yeah.
but it's like, dude, I mean, you can't just come in and clear cut. I mean,
Yeah.
you're getting rid of most of the character of the property. I mean,
Totally.
And so yeah, I mean, to that degree, it's
There's got to be something to anchor the building to the site.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
got to be a connector piece between the two, or it just kind of feels weird.
Yeah. Well, last dumb question. We're going into the holiday. We're going into Christmas. So as a designer, what are some good gift options
Oh, no.
for people who are listening who maybe has a friend who's a designer?
Terrible at the gifting.
What's your dream gift for the holidays, though?
Yeah.
Sleep,
Sleep. That's actually a really good answer.
babysitting.
Husband to take the kids for a while and just.
I think for the designer question, I think of books, like really good
Yeah.
books.
Awesome, like coffee table book.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
case study
there are a
houses.
million great
Or
Okay.
design,
Schindler
architecture.
photography.
Yeah.
Great
Not
architecture.
an
And
ebook,
there's, like,
not an
books are-
Amazon ebook. That won't work.
Books they're not cheap. They're expensive, and
Yeah.
But it needs to be
for
on paper.
for Christmas
Eames-
gift,
Eames
like
has
that's
a
a
great
great
book,
treat.
you know?
It's a really great treat.
Totally. I was gonna say books are the best
Yeah.
because there's so many. I mean, look at all these books in this office.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you could go crazy.
And then Charles and Ray Eames designed all these cool little objects all these years. These like birds and these little, just like objects you can put on the shelf.
Mm-hmm. Well, very cool.
Yeah.
Matt, Nicole, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, man,
it
appreciate
was
your
it was
time.
great to sit down, share a beer, and to talk with you guys. I wish you the best. Y'all have done some phenomenal jobs.
Thanks, man.
Can't wait to see what's coming up in the future.
Yeah.
And cheers to you guys.
Cheers, guys.
Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Talk soon.
We hope you enjoyed this discussion. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow us on Instagram. We want to hear from you, so leave us some feedback to help us shape future episodes.